Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm JLD, and this is the Off the Real podcast. This is part 2 of the Geoff Rockwell series, and if you didn't hear part 1, you should definitely go check it out. We heard about early stories involving Memphis Made Fire, Crown the Empire. We learned where Forever the Sickest Kids got their name from, the making of the hit song Hey Britney, how the band was formed, and even the inside scoop on the $1 million deal with Motown Records. So go ahead and check that one out, but first, check this one out. I'm JLD, and this is the Off the Real podcast. Enjoy. Tanner Patrick. Let's talk about you guys' interactions and how just how you feel he's doing today.
Sure. Well, my basic interaction started with them back at Disco Curtis. They were just kids from Colleyville, who once again we recorded at the house back then. The first time that Tanner ever drove on his own anywhere was to drive to my house to record.
Really? And that's a great story.
I was like, "You're kidding me." He goes, "No, I swear to God, this is the first time I've driven by myself."
Don't that make so much sense for him too? Like,
I was like, "That's great," but I mean, that's no easy stretch from Colleyville to like Southwest Arlington. I mean that's.
I didn't realize it was that far.
For a 16-year-old kid, that's
a nice trek.
He was like, I made it, you know what I mean? But yeah, he is. That was maybe. Honestly, I think that was maybe the first band that I really felt comfortable with saying that like this is gonna work, and so because we would do pre-production for their songs and like demos and things like that at their church. That's where they practice and stuff. And so I would go up there, and they would ask me like, what do we need to do? Is just kind of, this and this. They're just, just nervous being kids. And I was like, I tell you, like, if you guys just keep playing together, you keep doing your thing, like, this is gonna work. Like, you're already, AJ was already maybe the best drummer in the area.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, the guy was like,
so good.
His technique was perfect. He had a great feel for the sound. He was doing like Seosin type stuff, but it wasn't
cool.
like and he wasn't like overplaying at the same time. It was real tasteful. And Garrett is like he was an absolute monster. He was like this prodigy kid, playing guitar. They were all at the top of like their game. So it was like, and they were writing cool songs, and we were doing some cool stuff together. So I was like, if you just keep like we're doing this now, like if we just keep going, then you're going to be fine. And so their first band was actually called Outlet. They changed the name to Disco Curtis after that. But that was probably the first band that I felt good about saying, like, if you just keep going, like, this will work for sure.
Thing about Tanner that I always thought was cool is always, like, asking questions. Like, tell me, how do you do this? Da-da-da-da. And you knew, like, this kid's going to take over. Like, no matter what he does, he's going to be really good at it.
Well,
he was a sincere kid too.
Very. And we by the time that Disco Curtis came around, this was something that we did. We basically did a production deal where it was like, okay, they didn't necessarily have money to come out and like record all these songs and like do all the stuff that they wanted to do, but I was so sure that it was going to work. I basically was willing to say, okay, I'll come and record the thing. We'll work a deal. If we get you guys a deal, then I get paid from that, and I get to work on your next record, that kind of a thing. And so they were like, sure, sounds good to me, right? And so that's where that Disco Curtis EP came out of, that production deal. And so that was at the time I had just moved from Arlington to Fort Worth, my first place of my own in Fort Worth. That was at Skylab, right downtown, right across from the Union Gospel Mission, and did a ton of great records there. But yeah, on the way to one of our first sections, I actually got I was in downtown because I was like shipping. I was faxing like a contract to somebody, and I like pulled out in front of a city bus, and I got hit by the city bus, and I get hit by a Fort Worth city bus in downtown Fort Worth. Like my car didn't, busted like halfway down the block. People went flying all over the bus, and like I thought I was gonna go to jail. I was like, oh my gosh, I just destroyed this thing. My car was all busted up, but miraculously, like nobody was hurt. I wasn't hurt, so I just kind of like drove my busted car a couple blocks to the studio and just said, I just got hit by a bus, but I think we should just keep going. And so that was kind of this surreal moment where it was like, I should probably be in the hospital right now, but I'm here making records, and that's kind of the one funny story from the production of that. But
did you get that call from Interscope? Like, I want these guys. Did you get to deal with Interscope?
Yeah, well, this is where it gets a little sticky. People who know me know the story because I don't usually tell.
Okay, I don't know anything about it, so I wasn't asking around the corner.
It's cool. No, and but so my manager at the time, his name was Andrew Brightman. He's maybe the most plugged in guy like in LA, like music wise. He now manages Dave Cobb, who's done all like the Chris Stapleton stuff, all of Sturgill. He's the man. The guy, he can get a meeting anywhere, get me anything. And so he was managing me at the time. So we recorded the EP. I called him. I was like, hey, I got this thing that I think is really good. These kids, I mean, they're just kids, but they're like got a good sound. They got some real initiative. They were like touring like Hot Topic stores, doing acoustic stuff on their own. I was like, they get it. You know what I mean? They got it. These kids get it, and they have a good sound.
That was obvious.
Do you think that we could find somebody, find a label who would like this, who would try to get down with this? And he goes, yeah, let's see what we got, you know. And so he then sent it out to pretty much anybody that he could think of too. And you know, his Rolodex is stacked. You know what I mean? So we did it. Getting a call back from a guy named Todd Parker. He emailed me. Todd Parker from Interscope Records, MySpace at Interscope. They were doing a joint venture at the time. They had like Sherwood, and they had the girl from One Tree Hill, Kate Vogel, I think, at the time. And so they were trying to look for a band like them for that joint venture for Interscope. And so he was super interested. He was like, "This is good stuff. I think we can make this work." And he wanted to come see the band, and so I was like, "Yeah, that's of course." They had a hometown show coming up in Dallas. I can't remember. It was some kind of. It was kind of Deep Elm-ish. It was, I think maybe Mocha. Not. It was something coffee related, but it wasn't like a coffee shop. It was a venue, and so probably not there anymore. But Todd, whom I picked him up, we went and ate barbecue and just like kind of hung out, started talking about the band. But Todd was not the only label guy at the show.
Really?
Because independently, their manager had brought in the guys from Hopeless who were there.
Oh, nice.
And so, those guys all know each other because Hopeless had just joined. They had just completed a joint venture with All Time Low and Interscope together. And so they were working that record together. There was one big family that they were all here at this show to see Disco Curtis. And the freaking show was just, they nailed it. It was a great show. Kids everywhere. Kids like with their parents, like lining up to get autographs. I mean, you could just see their mouths just watering. And so, it was like, duh. I mean, the deal was basically done, like right then and there. It was like, amazing. They were already going to do it, pretty much. But like that just
sealed the deal.
Completely
you can't
sealed
walk away.
And and so with the power of the major label, Todd Parker being a production guy, he was he worked for John Feldman. He was he was a band guy. I think he got it. And so they decided to do that deal with Interscope, and so while my team did set that all up, we through no control of my own, we basically we kind of got into a little bit of a tussle with them because they I'm trying to say this in the right way without time has healed a lot of this, so it's water under the bridge. But they I think their parents and like their management and stuff kind of felt that when I came to them and said, hey, you don't have money to do this, but I'll do this if you just pay me later. I think they thought that was me, like taking advantage of these kids, and coming in and like trying to like latch on to them, which if you don't know the business, I guess maybe you're completely one-sided. But like they also don't see the emails that I'm emailing to Todd Parker and my manager, who, when he found out about this, absolutely hit the freaking roof. Like,
imagine.
you know, and he absolutely went insane. He was like, "Do they understand what they're doing? Like, these are my people. Like, Todd Parker is my person. You know what I mean? Like, these are our people. Like, you don't treat people like this." And I'm sitting here, like, this is the first deal that I've ever had like blow up in my face. I mean, because as far as I was concerned, this thing worked. You know what I mean? It worked like super well.
That sucks.
And then it worked, and it was just like this thing. It was like, all right, that's cool. Let's go forward with the deal that we worked. Let's get working on the next record. Like, let's do this. Like, let's hit the gas. And then to be like, well, hold on a second here, was just maybe it was the biggest like gut punch of my entire like professional life. I didn't understand it at the time. I was just like, I've never been so blindsided by something, because I just mentored these kids up, and they just had concerns. Like, production was taking a long time to do this, you know, to do it on the first hand, and I think the manager might have gotten their ear and said that I was trying to take advantage of them, which, I mean, I was the one who did my part. I mean, the guy who signed them was my guy, and they released the album as is. Interscope released the EP. They didn't even remaster it. Like, they didn't even give it to their guys to remaster. Like, they even used the master from Crystal Clear here in Dallas. Like, that is a Dallas record. And, you know, I felt like I did my part at the time, and they just saw it differently. And he ended up settling with them. Part of that was me not being able to work with them anymore. And, like, that was the hardest thing ever for me to swallow. I just could not believe that something that had worked so well had gone so south so quickly. And so that doesn't necessarily like bother me necessarily today, but like that still like stands out as like one of the moments where it's just like, gosh, like that really sucked. And time has healed a lot of that stuff.
Have you spoke with any of those guys?
Sure, yeah. Absolutely. And Tanner more than the other folks, we would get together and play racquetball. Like after that, you know, we would just talk about a bit his solo stuff.
Seems
and
like a really cool kid.
Yeah, and
he just does.
He's a pretty well-adjusted guy, and he was always, and part of the reason the band Disco Curtis didn't really work its thing was because they were really trying to find like a hit, and once you sign a major label deal, like it's super difficult from that like. That's just the beginning of this huge rat race, basically.
Okay.
And kind of in today's music market where it's like, you sign a major label deal, like you need a hit, or you're going to get dropped.
Bottom line.
That's it. They're not into artist development. They're not into it. And so what they did with Disco Curtis was like, okay, that's cool. Let's have Tanner go co-write with all of these, you know, these ace like LA writer guys.
That, yeah.
And so they were doing that for a long time, and came up with a couple of things, and then the production on it and the songwriting just kind of fell flat. It was they did like 2 songs that kind of came out, and it was like, it's cool, but I mean it wasn't the hit, right? It wasn't the hit that they were looking for. And then ultimately that whole process just got to be really tedious for the rest of the band, and it just kind of like and then it just kind of went, and that they could just run its course. And then Tanner did a solo thing, and obviously that's worked out super well for him. He's done the YouTube thing, and he has been doing and is doing super well. He also does his own original stuff. I'll talk to him every once in a while on Twitter, and we'll just kind of go back and forth. But that's kind of that story in a nutshell. But I mean, really talented guys. I think AJ played for the Rockets summer for a while, yeah, and Garrett went to school out of Nashville, I think, and still just an amazing guitarist.
That's
and
awesome.
It's just Cal, the guy who played guitar, who we haven't really mentioned a whole lot. He's a photographer. He's an incredible photographer, and he just does all. And then Brendan,
right, yeah,
which we segue into the heavy music side of this thing. Became the brains behind Crown the Empire, who was maybe the biggest band to come out of here in a long time. So
yeah, that's insane. A couple more things before you guys kick me out of here. You ever EKG?
Yeah,
that was fun, right? You talk to those guys,
man.
And I wish we had a video to capture the reaction from that.
This is an entire podcast. This is.
For sure.
I can tell this story. I try to give you the condensed version. Before I said that the Disco Curtis like thing kind of going south was like my first real like gut punch, you know, in terms of career and things are not going right. EKG was if Disco Curtis was a gut punch, EKG was like a phone booth being thrown on me. It was something
Mortal
that
Kombat move.
it was a finish move. It was the finish move. It was the Raiden finish move, Mortal Kombat style. And basically, that was a band from Arkansas called Alert All Arms. They were doing like an emo thing or whatever. And they had demos on like a side project that was like a joke project. That was them just rapping and them just being stupid and having a good time. And I was like, this stuff is legit. This is fun. Like, that's good stuff. And they were friends with Schoolboy Humor and whatever. And so this was during like the heyday. This is when I was doing 2 EPs a month. I was absolutely doing any kind of power pop thing I get my hands on. I was working bands from Canada. I was going to work with a guy from Turkey until that kind of fell through. Like, this was a global phenomenon. So I was super busy at that point, and I kind of got the idea to kind of expand. While I had that position of strength, I was like, all right, so I'm going to start a label. And so, I'm going to do the development on my own. I'm going to do like the branding on my own. Use my manager, use my team to shop it in the backside, and then I'm going to use like I'm going to do my own imprint through that, and it's going to work. And I can develop my own bands, have money from that side of it, and just like that's what I'm going to do, you know. And so when the whole power pop rat race is over, I can have that to kind of do my own thing, like whatever I want. I can have that pipeline develop whatever I want. And so that was the big plan behind the label. It's called Chaos Theory, and so that was my label. And so through a couple of different channels, I met a guy who was willing to fund it and everything. So I came to EKG. I was like, I've got a guy who wants to fund this thing out. Bring you guys down for a couple of weeks. We'll make an EP. We'll do this thing, and this is the plan. This is what I want to do. And so we did that, man. Just had an absolute blast. And those guys were just some of the funniest guys like on the planet. Just hysterical guys, like really, really, really great dudes. And had a great time making that first EP. Then we kind of shopped that around, kind of started that a little bit, put out some feelers, say, hey, we're doing this kind of a thing. And so people kind of took notice of it. And so we planted a lot of good seeds with it. And then eventually, well, we had a little bit of a legal mess with their lawyer, who was kind of a moron, he thought he was looking out for them, but like he wasn't. So like him and my investor guy got like crossways, and the EP ended up getting shelved. Really? Like, yeah, like because the lawyer wanted to come in and change the deal that we had agreed to in principle. At first, we kind of did a handshake deal. It was like, okay, here's the point of the label. This is how much you get. This is how much we're going to get. This is not like a production deal. Like I have funding. Like, this is a record label. Yeah. Like, we have an accountant. You know what I mean? Like this is the deal. And so their lawyer wanted to change the deal to more of like a net proceeds thing, which was basically like a 50-50 split, which for my investor is not what he signed up for. That's not what I sold him on. That's not what the band said sure to. But I mean, they were just kind of being premature, I guess. And so everybody got crossways, and it was this giant mess. And so I basically was, after like months, I was able to like slowly convince the investor that it would be a good idea to at least put this out and to kind of see how it goes. Because we'd only shopped it in back channels up to that point. And so after months and months, I finally got him to give the go-ahead for us to release it. And so once it did, it was like, hey, people like this. It's pretty cool. This could actually work. And so then the investor guy, he sees that that's working. He's like, okay, I'm back in. Let's do a deal like this, and then let's get an album done. And I was like, great idea. And so with the money that he invested in the label. We basically moved them down here. We got a house for him in the colony, put a deposit down on like a rental house for him. They were all going to come down and get jobs and like work the band here just as a local band. We were going to work on production at the time, and so we did that for a couple months, and we had showcases set up out in LA. We had we had an album like in the can, like done, like full length album, and all new stuff. It was like, all right, sweet, like this is going to be great. And so I'm talking about weeks before. I mean, weeks, like maybe 2 weeks leading up to like those showcase dates. The lead singer guy, I mean, who's been friends with these guys forever, kind of decides that he's just not happy with kind of like the lifestyle, like the band lifestyle, and they may be a little bit crazy, but I mean, they're not doing like heroin or anything, you know what I mean? But he didn't feel like that environment was good for him, that environment they were living in, and so it was like, okay, let's meet up, let's talk this out. And so all hands on deck. I went up to the freaking colony, we sat down in their living room, and I was like, all right, let's talk this out, like what needs to happen, because we are weeks out from major label showcases. We've got an album in the can. This thing fell through once before, a long time ago. I revived it on my own reputation, and there's a lot of money that's not mine, that's somebody else's that's put into this, so let's make this work. What needs to happen to make this work? And so we laid out kind of a bunch of plans and guidelines and things like that for the house and for the band as far as conduct goes. And I kind of left that meeting with an understanding that, okay, crisis averted.
They're going to work it out.
We're going to work it out. They're best friends, have been since they were kids. Like, they're going to work this out. These guidelines, everybody will stick to it. Everybody knows how serious it is. This is not just some band that you're starting in the garage. Like, there's money involved. Like, you moved down here from your home, to be here to start this thing. People have invested themselves, money and time into this, and they invested their own money and time into it as well. It ain't free to do any of this stuff. And so left the meeting with the understanding that was good. And a band super, super generously gave me a ticket, just kind of as a bonus. Gave me a one single ticket to go see the Rangers in the ALCS in 2010. And I was like, that's awesome. This is great. And so we wrapped up the project because my studio at the time was back in Arlington. We shared a parking lot with the ballpark. It was right on Ballpark and Randall Mill right there. Okay. So I had a studio location there for about 3 months, and then the whole thing fell through. Totally different story. But so finished this week-long session with this band. They surprised me with the bonus ticket to the freaking ALCS, which is right across the street. So we finished the session. At the end of the day, man, and I just walk over to the ballpark. I'm like on cloud nine, right? Feeling this good. Is great. I'm feeling really good. And man, I get a call from the drummer of EKG, Caleb, and he's like, yeah.
While you at the game?
No. Yeah. While I'm at the game, he calls me and is like, hey, Jacob just packed up his stuff and just moved back to Arkansas. Like, he's gone. And I'm just like, just absolutely beside myself. I mean,
unbelievable.
And it was at that moment. I mean, we tried to revive the project in a couple of different ways, and I tried to revive the label through a couple of different things. But looking back on it, like that was the catastrophic moment. Like that was where my label died. Like right there, it died on the table, dead on arrival, and it was just couldn't survive those two big giant catastrophes. The guy with the money, obviously, I had to walk into him and be like, this happened again, and there's nothing I can do about it. We even tried like different singers. We tried everything to revive it. He didn't want to let it go, and I had to tell him at one point. I was like, if you put any more into this, like it's just going to get deeper. Like you should probably.
That has to be frustrating with so many bands that who would die for that opportunity.
Tens of thousands of dollars wasted on the promotion of this thing, and he was all in too. And I mean, the rest of the band isn't at fault. I was learning the whole thing because I never started a label before, so I was learning how to function as like a label, head. I was learning how to deal with people and personalities and stuff. And everybody who was involved in the process was still learning. So we all made mistakes, and people are going to make mistakes. But that those mistakes, those personnel issues that just couldn't get past, like that was the nail in the coffin. And so that was the last time that I did that. And it was massive failure. But I mean, that happens. Nobody's ever gone through music without having some kind of failure like that without really trying, And so that was, I was super disappointed that I couldn't at least come through for my investor to give it a shot, because it's one thing to take a shot, to have a shot, to miss it, but it's another thing to get everything set up and to not even really
see what could happen,
not even really try. And it was like that killed me, that there was a guy who believed in me enough and believed in me enough to get this product to market, to get these guys to get on the same page. There was a guy who believed in me enough to do that he would put tens of thousands of dollars into doing this thing the right way too. There wasn't it wasn't some kind of thing where I had to scratch and claw for every single dime from him. Like, he was not like, I mean, he didn't open up his life savings to us, but like he was also but he was very generous with us, And so that really, like, I mean, that's still hard for me to swallow, like, today, just even talking about it. Like, that's hard to know that somebody's out there, that you let somebody down like that. Even though I didn't pack up and leave to Arkansas. But I mean, without me starting the label, none of that happens. And so it's still at my feet at the end of the day.
Have you talked to those guys?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've talked to everybody except really Jacob. And the band pretty much disowned him at that point. They've been friends for their entire lives, and like they're not friends. But all those guys moved out to LA.
Oh, nice.
Caleb is a producer and songwriter. He's got a licensing deal. He does pretty well. He does some really cool stuff. Matt, who's a guitar player, like this, like Guitar Wizard, he's at like this animation school, which is like, it's like one of the top animation schools in the world. Like, you graduate from the school, like you immediately get a job somewhere, animation.
Yeah.
And he was always a really, really good artist. He did ton of great art for the band. He's a next level artist. Like, his talent on that is, he's better at that than I will ever be at anything. You know what I mean? He's one of those guys who's just like a 1% talent.
That's insane.
And then Justin, who is the rapper guy, he moved out there too. He does video work and all kinds of stuff, and they're all happy to be out west. They're happy to be out of Texas. None of them. They all have very, very bad memories of Texas, and I think they all would be glad to never come back, which is kind of sad. But I mean, at that point, I kind of have to understand it. I mean, this was a huge failure for them as well, and so it's like, they're not big Texas.
Well, there it is, folks. That's a wrap on the second part. But don't fret, we saved the best for last with an up-and-coming superstar. She was top 10 competitor on The Voice and had what was critically acclaimed and considered Song of the Year by some with the record Blue. We talked Reagan James, and also about one of the coolest rock bands out. We also drop exclusive information that you will hear first about the band Kid Liberty. So come back. And don't forget to subscribe and tell a friend to tell a friend. I'm JLD, and this is the All For Real podcast.